All right, welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to jump into a topic you probably think you know all about, UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena. But here's the thing, we're not going to debate grainy photos. We're going to look at this from a totally different angle, focusing on how we even think about this kind of evidence.
You've heard this one, right? The famous Carl Sagan line. And look, it makes perfect sense. It's pretty much the foundation of good science. If you're going to make a claim that turns everything we know on its head, you'd better bring the receipts.
But here's the twist. What if the game is rigged? What if the evidence is meant to be messy and confusing? What happens when the noise isn't just an accident, but an intentional part of the problem? That question changes everything.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight right off the bat. This isn't really about little green man or alien invasions. The real story here, the one we're digging into, is about epistemology.
Epistemology is just a fancy way of talking about how we know what we know. And the whole UAP thing, it's like a perfect storm, a fascinating case study in how our major institutions, scientific, military, even social ones, just completely fail when they're faced with ambiguous, high-stakes information. And that leads us right into this huge problem, this sort of intellectual trap that's so easy to fall into. We'll call it the extraordinary evidence trap.
Let me give you a simple analogy. Okay, so if I tell you I have a cat and I show you a picture of a cat, you'll probably just nod and believe me, right? It's a low bar. But what if I told you that same cat speaks perfect English? Suddenly, that photo isn't nearly enough.
Your brain immediately goes into overdrive. You'd want video, right? Then you'd want to meet the cat in person. You might even want a genetic analysis to make sure it's not some kind of hoax. See how the bar for evidence keeps getting higher and higher? That's because your starting belief that cats can't talk is just so incredibly strong.
And that is the trap. If your disbelief is strong enough, no amount of evidence will ever be good enough. You'll always find another explanation, no matter how wild it sounds, because it still seems more plausible than the extraordinary claim. The goalposts just keep moving, forever. So how do we get out of this mess? Well, we have to stop treating all evidence like it's the same. We've got to learn how to filter out all that junk, all that noise, and find the high-quality signal that's hiding inside.
And this is where the quality of the data is absolutely everything. I mean, look, a random report from someone in their backyard with a shaky phone camera, that's pretty low on the reliability scale. A trained military pilot's visual account? Okay, that's better. But the absolute gold standard? That's when you have multiple, high-tech sensors all saying the exact same thing.
And that right there is the key. We have to focus on the cases where different independent systems, actual physical instruments, are all telling the same story. Our eyes can play tricks on us, but when different kinds of calibrated hardware all agree, you're looking at something far more solid. The classic example of this, the one everyone points to, is the 2004 USS Nimitz incident. I mean, you've got it all. Multiple Top Gun fighter pilots making visual contact. At the same time, the ship's advanced radar is tracking it, and the jet's own infrared systems are recording it. We're talking trained professionals using million-dollar equipment on totally separate platforms.
So when you have radar, infrared, and trained eyeballs all locked onto the same object, doing things that seem impossible, you just can't write that off as a simple mistake or a weather balloon. Something was physically there, and what you're left with is this unexplained residual.
And that unexplained residual, that's the signal. That's the piece of the puzzle we should actually be chasing. Okay, so if this high-quality signal is out there, why aren't the best scientists in the world all over it? Well, it turns out there are two huge roadblocks standing in the way. First up, there's something called institutional opacity. It's a simple idea. A ton of the best data, the really good stuff from the military with all the sensor readings, is classified. The reason they give is national security. You don't want to show your enemies how good your radar is. But the effect, whether it's on purpose or not, is what the source calls targeted obfuscation. It's a system that specifically hides the best, most convincing data from the very people who could actually analyze it properly. It makes a real, objective evaluation basically impossible. The second barrier is just as powerful: social stigma. For decades, if you were a serious scientist and you even mentioned this topic in a professional setting, your career was over. Done. You'd be labeled a kook, you'd lose your funding, and your colleagues would avoid you.
And this wasn't some accident, you know? It was actively encouraged. Way back in 1953, the Robertson panel basically recommended a public relations campaign to debunk sightings and make people lose interest. And it worked. It poisoned the well for generations of scientists. It's only in the last few years that a tiny window has opened for people to look at this seriously.
So, you take that evidence trap, you add in the fact that the best data is hidden away, and then you layer on decades of social stigma, and you realize, wow, we've been asking the totally wrong question this whole time.
So let's be super clear here. The signal we're talking about isn't a spaceship. It's not proof of aliens. The signal is that leftover data, that chunk of high-quality, multi-sensor information that simply defies any normal explanation we can throw at it.
So where do we go from here? The path forward has to be different. It means we got to demand transparency and push for declassification of the important data. It means we bring in real, skeptical science, but without all the old-school ridicule. And it means we have to be honest about what we don't know and finally stop moving those goalposts.
And when you look at it that way, it just completely reframes the whole conversation. It takes us away from that simple, easy-to-laugh-at question of, what is it?
Because the real question, the much more important question, isn't about what's out there. It's about what's in here. Do we, as a society, have the collective courage to look at weird, uncomfortable data without prejudice and just follow where it leads, no matter how strange the destination might be? That's the real challenge.